Let's talk about reasons atheist parents should not teach their younger children about Santa Claus. Parents have to lie to their kids about him. This is a point Sam Harris made a few weeks ago, where the argument is basically saying, look, if you're teaching your kids about Santa Claus, you are teaching them a lie. You're teaching them to believe things that you know are not real. And why would you do that to your kids? They're going to grow up and they're going to be thinking, at some point they're going to realize the truth about Santa Claus. And along with that truth comes this idea that my parents told me something that wasn't true. Should I trust them when they tell me other things? And if you want to build a level of trust and respect with your child, and hopefully that happens the other way around too, then you ought to be honest with your child at all times. So right off the bat, this is an argument that has been made, which is that just tell your child the truth. Tell them the truth always and thoroughly, and just let them know a lot of other people may believe this, but I'm going to be straight with you and tell you that Santa Claus isn't real. Now, it doesn't mean you can't enjoy the season, but don't believe that. And let me tell you why that's not true. You punish your child for thinking critically. Think about all those questions little kids ask their parents and other people when Santa comes up, like, how come Santa and our aunt have the same gift wrapping paper? How come Santa's handwriting looks a lot like Daddy's handwriting? How does Santa reach all of those houses in just one night? Isn't that like physically impossible? I mean, those are amazing questions. And wouldn't you want your child to ask those questions? Like, they're doing exactly what they should be doing. And yet, as parents, a lot of times we deflect it. Like, it's just a coincidence. Santa has some magical time travel abilities. Those reindeer go really fast. Why are there so many Santas at the mall? Well, Santa goes, he's visiting this one, then that one, then the next place we happen to be shopping at. And basically, these kids are asking the right questions, and parents shut down their good questions. They basically punish their child for having exactly the type of thought they should be having. And why do we want to punish them? We ought to be encouraging them to ask those critical questions, and we ought to be giving them a good answer while we're at it. And Christmas is the perfect time of year when kids are thrown all of these ideas about Santa. And it's one of the first things that all of their classmates take as seriously as they do, and yet at some point they may get this inkling, wait a minute, there's something fishy about this story. And if they can suss out the truth from the fiction, isn't that a wonderful thing? So if you're teaching your child about Santa Claus and they're asking you these questions and you're throwing back lies in their direction to say you shouldn't be asking that, or, that was a silly question. Of course Santa can visit every house every night because he can do this. You're basically telling them, don't ask good questions because, we're going to look at you funny when you do it, or we're going to lie to you when you ask us a good question because we don't want to bother you with the truth. It promotes lazy parenting and unhealthy lies. This whole idea that Santa is watching whether you've been, good or bad, so be good for goodness sake. That idea that Santa's watching over you, so if you want a good present, you better be good all year. And, if you do anything wrong, Santa's going to punish you for it at the end. I mean, come on. If you're a parent, teach your child why they should be good and why being bad is the wrong thing. You don't want to hold over them this idea that they know that there's this reward coming at the end of the year, but they're not going to get it if they do anything wrong. Like, that's what a parent does when they don't have the ability to teach their kid right from wrong. They just say, well, I'm not going to do it, but you know how you love Santa? Santa's going to punish you for it, and he's watching you at all times, so be good at all times. It's doing the right thing, but it's doing it for the completely wrong reasons, and it gives kids this unhealthy fear. I don't think it's the same fear they get when you say God is watching over them, but it is this idea that, especially around December, where these kids are just on their toes, just, oh my God, I can't do anything bad, otherwise Santa's not going to give me that thing I want, and they freak out. And it's, again, yes, you want kids doing the right things, but let's teach them to do the right things for the right reasons, instead of saying, Santa's watching you when you sleep at night, or something creepy like that. Teaching kids about Santa Claus makes them want stuff around this time of year. And that's actually unfortunate, because shouldn't this time of year be a lot more about giving stuff to other people? This December happens to be a time when a lot more people are generous, when they're much more likely to be charitable, and that's a value you want to instill in children. And yet when you teach them about Santa, what comes to mind? The kids come up with a list that they want to send to Santa. This is all the stuff I want. No one sends a list to Santa about, these are all the things I want to give away to people who are less fortunate than I am. No one does that. It's all about what they want, and it's about greed, and it's about, materialism. And those are not good values. We want to get them away from that. And by teaching kids about Santa, and by teaching them that if they're good, Santa will deliver them all the things they want, you're just teaching them, if you want something, ask for it. If this is all about what you want. It's not about what other people need, but about what you want. And that's not a value we ought to be teaching our children. Santa Claus promotes the idea of faith. If you're an atheist parent, I know there's a lot of parallels between Santa Claus and God. They're both watching if you've been good or bad. They both will reward you if you've been good. I know those parallels are out there. But basically, if you're an atheist parent, I'm not saying you should absolutely teach your child God doesn't exist. I think they need to figure that out for themselves. But by telling them that Santa Claus is out there, you're telling them to have faith in something that doesn't exist. And isn't that something we want them to get away from? We want them to be able to figure out the truth about Santa Claus on their own. We like that. That's a good idea. So by teaching your child about Santa Claus, you're telling them to have faith in something that everyone around them believes, and yet no one has any evidence for. All those kids say they want to stay up late at night to see Santa and stuff, but they never catch him, or they fall asleep, and that's when Santa came. That's all about teaching your child to just believe something because everyone else believes it, and because the media is in on it, and they're pushing Santa on TV, and all the stores we go to, they're promoting the Christmas season. That's what we want kids to get away from. We don't want to teach them to just accept Santa on faith. You want to make it like an experiment. Like, a lot of people believe in this, but how do you know Santa exists? Well, is there an experiment we could do to figure it out? What if we set up a camera by the Christmas tree or the fireplace, and let's see if Santa actually comes there? That to me seems like a really valuable lesson you could teach your children. So teaching your child about Santa Claus is telling them just to not think critically and to just have faith in some higher power that will give you what you want if you ask for it really hard. And that's not a value I think a lot of atheist parents want to teach their children. Christmas perpetuates tradition. And as atheists, I would think one of the things we want to teach our children is not to just go along blindly with traditions just because everyone else does it and they've done it for a long time. We ought to be able to create our own traditions. So Christmas is all about doing the same things every year. And I'm not talking about visiting your family, but the Christmas tree goes up, you put presents under there, or when Santa Claus comes, he's going to put presents under there, and we're going to decorate the house the same way every year. And you're going to get your picture taken with Santa, and all of the stuff that goes with the holiday season. Those are all things that all your friends do, all the families around you do. That's all tradition. And again, it's not that all of those traditions are bad, but it's a time when you're supposed to do what everyone else is doing. And if you're an atheist parent, doesn't it make a lot more sense to kind of create your own traditions around the holiday season and break from the mold of doing what everyone else does just because it's common? That should be the time where you say, yeah, I know everyone else is doing this, but Christmas is the time, my family plays football in the snow, and we're going to start doing that every year. Or Christmas is the time we kind of gather all of the belongings we no longer need in our house, and we drive somewhere and donate it to charity, or we give it to people less fortunate, or we donate money to places, that we haven't given over the course of the year. Those are awesome traditions that you can start with your family. And to me, that would be a more valuable lesson than just going along with what everyone else does. Santa is the biggest tradition of them all. This idea that this guy in a red suit's going to come down your chimney at night and leave you with presents if you've been good. That's a tradition. And you ought to be able to break free. Don't get stuck in something just because everyone else does it. That to me is a value that a lot of humanists and atheists would want to believe, because it's kind of the core of our identity, that we broke away from something that everyone else happens to believe. And let's do it with Christmas too. There's no reason to buy into it just because everyone else around you does. One last reason you should teach your kids the truth about Santa Claus, or let them figure it out for themselves, and then don't deny them that truth. Say, yep, you figured it out. You know the truth about Santa Claus. The last reason is there is a power to having knowledge that people around you don't have. Imagine if you're a 6-year-old and you know the truth about Christmas, that Santa isn't coming to your house, that's really your parents, and all of your classmates, they don't know. They all think Santa's coming to their house. I'm not saying that that kid should go tell all the other kids the truth. I think the parents should be able to handle that. And it's not fun to just tell someone the answer and not let them have the joy of figuring it out for themselves. But imagine being that 6-year-old who knows the truth. What power it is to know, you know what, all my friends believe this and they're all wrong. And they're all going to figure that out real soon. But until then, I'm the only one with the answer. That's kind of a powerful position to be in, to be able to say, wow, I know something and no one else does. I could teach them about it. I could help them figure it out. As a teacher, I come across this every day. Maybe I know some knowledge that my students don't. And the whole game is, how can I get them to learn it for themselves? I don't want to just tell them the answer. I want them to figure it out for themselves. And it's kind of a cool position to be in, because I wasn't in that position when I was in school. And I think Santa Claus works the same way. When you're the first kid in your class or your family to figure it out, you feel special. You feel like you're smart because you know something, and all these other people, including the adults on TV, including the people who go to mall and sit on Santa's lap, they don't know something. And the same thing happens, I'll say, when atheists figure out the truth about God. Like, we know that there's no evidence for God. We believe that God doesn't exist, and yet everyone around us, they believe it. And it's like, oh man, how is it that I came across what I believe is the truth and all these other people haven't figured that out yet? Yes, it's frustrating at times. Yes, you really want to just like latch onto them and say, how do you believe this stuff? There's no evidence for it. But at the same time, there's kind of this independent spirit that you get, this kind of this special feeling you have that, wow, even if they don't believe me, even if they never listen to what I have to say, I know I'm right about this. And that's an amazing feeling to have. And as a young atheist, when I was like 14 and I became an atheist, and for a lot of my friends who became atheists at different ages, that's a huge feeling of accomplishment, of knowing you broke away from something your family has believed in for a long time. What if your family's super religious or your parents a pastor? To say like, wow, my dad's life work is all about this thing, and here I am pretty much figuring out that that's not true. And so I think if you teach your kids the truth about Santa Claus, or when they figure it out for themselves, you don't deny them that truth, you're giving them that opportunity to hold something really powerful, in their hands. This notion that they know something other people do not. Okay, all that said, maybe there are some reasons you should teach your child about Santa Claus. And if you want to know what those reasons are, click the link over here and we'll take you to that video. My name is Hemant Mehta, and I write at friendlyatheist.com. Please leave your comments and thoughts below, and we will check them out soon.